What's going on, y'all? Eric Moldry here with Code Red Conversations. Thanks for joining me today. We have a lot of topics to discuss. I won't waste your time. Give you a brief intro. We're going to jump into Congressman Tim Burchell's shocking revelation about what he knows about aliens or the whole UAP, UFO phenomenon. He says what he knows, and if we found out what he knew, it would keep us up at night. So we're going to start off with that. We're going to discuss a few disturbing crime stories. A woman who was killed by an illegal alien from Haiti who entered our country under the Biden administration, or was not, or was protected under the Biden administration. I'll say that much. And we'll go into the details, the gruesome details of that story. We'll discuss the current fate of the killer of Irina Zarutska on the subway, on the train system a few months back. We're going to go into some detail as to what's currently going on with him. Again, it's one of the many issues with our criminal justice system. As it is the best one that we can think of, the best one we have in the world, there's still a lot of issues there. But let's go ahead and start off with the situation going on with Congressman Tim Burchett as he breaks down what he knows about the alien phenomenon. And we'll hear a few other details that all it does is feed the conspiracies, feed the conspiracy theorists. But in all actuality, not every conspiracy theory is some made up crazy thing. Some of these things have a lot of weight to them. Check this one out.
Heard about this, an absolutely wild story at a time when we could be on the verge of some kind of disclosure about alien life and UFOs from the White House. They've said this. 4 people who worked in government programs and knew a whole lot about that topic have either vanished or have been murdered. The first was retired General William Neal McCasland, who had ties to UFO programs in the government. He disappeared suddenly from his home in New Mexico in February. He left his phone, his glasses, and his watch at home. He also worked at an Air Force base that reportedly held the debris from the Roswell, New Mexico crash in the 19.
Now, allegedly, and this is according to his wife, I saw this recent story. She's claiming that he really didn't know anything when it came down to UFOs. Now, is that true? Was there some outside pressure that she was getting? Who knows? But again, stories like this only make those of us who have a distrust for the government, which we all should have in to some capacity. We all should have a healthy distrust for the government in one way, shape, or form. But all this does is just feed those of us who are just like, what are they trying to hide? Because clearly they are trying to hide what they know. There's no getting around that. Let's continue.
40s. Then it was Monica Reza, a former NASA engineer who worked directly under General McCasland on advanced propulsion engines. She vanished while hiking in.
Forgive me, y'all. I just had the mic next to me. You probably didn't hear anything, or you barely heard anything I said previously. So forgive me for that. Actually, let me go ahead and kind of start all over just to make sure the audio is good. In today's episode, we're going to be discussing a host of issues. One of them being what Congressman Tim Burchett said about aliens. He said if the general public knew what he knew about aliens, that it would keep us up at night. So we're going to go into comments that he made, and we'll also discuss current happenings when it comes to the UFO phenomenon here in the U.S. People who have come up missing in recent months. We'll also discuss a tragic incident out of Florida where a woman was brutally killed by an illegal alien who is protected under the Biden administration. You have to see it to believe it, y'all. So I'll hold on to that. That'll be the next story. We'll talk about the man accused, because I say accused, I put it in scare quotes just for the sake of being professional or respectful to our system. But the man who brutally killed Irina Zarutska, or is accused of it. We'll talk about his current status in the legal system based on his mental health. So those will be the issues that we address. We'll go into detail on each one, but let's fire it up, y'all. Great. We'll have a good conversation today. Some heavy topics, but I think we're all mature enough to handle it. So let's just start off with what's going on when it comes down to Congressman Tim Burchett's statements about Tim Burchett. Hopefully I said that properly in the beginning. His statement about aliens.
Have you heard about this? An absolutely wild story at a time when we could be on the verge of some kind of disclosure about alien life and UFOs from the White House. They've said this. 4 people who worked in government programs and knew a whole lot about that topic have either vanished or have been murdered. The first was retired General William Neal McCasland, who had ties to UFO programs in the government. He disappeared suddenly from his home in New Mexico in February. He left his phone, his glasses, and his watch at home. He also worked at an Air Force base that reportedly held the debris from the Roswell, New Mexico crash in the 19...
So allegedly, and again, I'm just repeating some of the things I said earlier as my audio, the issues of going live. But his wife stated in a recent interview that he didn't know anything about aliens. Now, was that some type of outside pressure coming down on her because they want to keep what he knew to themselves? They want to keep it under wraps, or is that true? And sadly, those of us who have a healthy distrust for the government, all it does is just make us look at our government even more sideways.
1940s. Then it was Monica Reza, a former NASA engineer who worked directly under General McCasland on advanced propulsion engines. She vanished while hiking in California last June with friends who say they have no idea what happened. Then it was Nuro Lareyo, the director of plasma science at MIT. He was murdered in his home in Boston in December. And then it was Carl Grillmar, a Caltech astrophysicist who discovered water on another planet where there may have been life. Carl was murdered randomly in his home last month. Our next guest says this was not a coincidence.
Now, the idea that finding water on another planet means that there may have been life, there's no evidence for that. All I'm saying is just that we don't know. Water doesn't necessarily mean that life could be there. I mean, the universe is cold. We would kind of expect that to be the case.
Everybody's thinking it's UFO, but he had some nuclear secrets. There's just too many of them disappearing, Benny. Nothing happens by coincidence in this town or around this town.
Tennessee Congressman Tim Burchett is joining us. He's also a member of the Oversight and Foreign Affairs Committee. Congressman, good to see you. What do you think's going on here?
Well, I don't know exactly. I just know there are no coincidences in this town. These folks have disappeared or died mysteriously, and there's the only thing that ties them together is the fact that they worked on things that are dealing with outer space, whether it's UFOs or nuclear secrets or missiles or what have you. But I think we need full disclosure. When I'm in a meeting, in a closed door meeting, and I ask about the president's points on these, and then I'm told by some arrogant, unelected bureaucrat that the president is on a need-to-know basis, I think that says everything it needs to be said about what's going on. I think there's an arrogance, there's an underlying, and I talked to the president about this. I said, it's just layers of the onion, Mr. President. You peel one off, and there's another one underneath. You put your top people in, and it's just too much to clear out in 4 years. And it's just, we've got a real problem, I think, in this area. And I think you've got some arrogance. When I sit in a meeting and some little punk with a man bun is sort of running the show, and you have decorated military officers in the meeting there that are basically unallowed to say anything, and you can read their faces or what's going on.
Well, General McCasland, he was not a minor player at Wright-Patterson Air Force Base. He was there for more than 35 years. At one point, he was the top guy at that base, and he just disappears. His family has no idea what happened. Do you think the cases are connected, or do you think this is just some absolutely wild coincidence because all four of these people are also connected in some way?
Yeah, I think some of them could be a domestic issue, but I think overall, I think there is a connection there.
Okay,
And
so you do think this is a
I don't
conspiracy?
think we're ever going to know because
Yeah, I agree with him there. We would never know either way. Now, just a quick response to this post right here. Someone in the chat said they wonder why aliens wouldn't exist. I personally believe that, especially if you follow how they've been seen or how they react throughout history, if you're unfamiliar on my channel, I'll see if I can put it in the chat here. I did a video maybe a year and a half ago, 2 years ago, maybe even a little longer now, where I had Gary Bates from Creation Ministries International. He's written and made a ton of videos dealing with the subject of aliens. And he's under the impression that these might be some extra dimensional beings, even going as far as believing that they might be demonic in origin. And in case you want to dismiss it outright, I would really recommend you go back and watch that video because he goes into a ton of detail. Even if you don't watch that video, go to cmicreation.com and they have a ton of content on aliens and they make a very strong case. And this idea of aliens being these extra dimensional beings isn't just limited to those who are Christians. This perspective has really grown and branched out into mainstream ufology. Ufology is what they call it, or UAP research. This extra dimensional entities, because they say they act in ways that aren't common or that defy the laws of physics. That's what makes them believe that these, and they disappear and appear out of nowhere. That's what makes a lot of these experts, for a lack of a better term, think that there's something way deeper going on.
it'll come out, and it gives enough time for the trail to go. You know, it's like when a kid in Washington D.C. gets they find him dead and they claim that he was mugged, yet his watch and wallet and he's got cash on him are not taken. But that's just the story that's put out, and that's what we believe. So
Yeah.
I just do not believe this is by coincidence.
And people just do not disappear. And the connections between all four of these people,
not in this day and age. No, yeah. You've got to have some real inside type of operations.
Okay.
Let me know what y'all think. Do you believe that these individuals who disappeared, do you think it's just some random conspiracy? I mean, random chance that, or by random chance that they all happen to disappear and all having ties in some way, shape, or form to the government covering up or wanting to keep secret? Let's just say, either way, same thing. Wanting to keep secret what they know about UFOs? Or do you think, do you believe it's something that's random or chance? Or do you think that there is something hidden going on? Let me know.
Okay, I want to play you a soundbite. Former colleague of yours, Matt Gaetz, making some pretty shocking statements yesterday about aliens. Take a look.
I had someone come and brief me who was in a military uniform, worked for the United States Army, that was briefing me on the locations of hybrid breeding programs where captured aliens were breeding with humans to create some hybrid race that could engage in intergalactic communication. Aliens that were living were in forced breeding programs with humans that had been abducted from war zones and from even the caravans of migrants.
All right. I mean,
I don't know about y'all. I mean, that's just wild. But it doesn't shock me personally. Like, not at all. The idea that there could be something other than what we see, that there's more going on in our world than the natural. This idea, and then I'll let this video play out, and I want to share a few more of my thoughts. I don't want to keep interrupting. I'll let it play. Forgive me.
I don't have the tinfoil hat on just yet, Congressman, but I'm wondering, kind of how you react to that, because you are connected. You're on the UFO subcommittee. I mean, I'm just wondering what you make of that. Have you heard anything like that?
Well, I'm still a member of Congress, so I can't really comment too much
Listen to Senator Burchett's response, y'all. Listen to his response.
on what Matt said, but I will say this.
Wait, seriously? Are you being serious, or is that tongue in cheek?
Let me back up just a bit.
But I will say this.
Wait,
really comment to. Well, I'm still a member of Congress, so I can't really comment too much on what Matt said. But I will say this.
Wait, seriously? Are you being serious, or is that tongue in cheek?
I'm being 100% serious. Okay. I've been 100% serious. I've been briefed by just about every alphabet agency there is. And I'll just tell you this, if they would release the things that I've seen, you would stay up, you'd be up at night worrying about or thinking about this stuff. We just need to disclose it all. I'm sick of it. Well, I was briefed. I'll just tell you this. I was briefed last week on an issue, or excuse me, 2 weeks ago. And it would have set the earth on it. This country would have come unglued, I think, if they would have heard all that I heard. They would demand answers. And
this is wild, y'all. I've seen this video. Obviously, I watched this video because I wanted to respond and react to it. But this is really crazy when you think about it. First of all, after Matt Gaetz makes this crazy sounding claim that
and we need to, but it's never going to get. Unfortunately, it just keeps getting covered up, and the people that know are dying or disappearing, as the case may be.
Test 1, test 2. All right, let me know if it acts up anymore. Forgive me for that. But let me go back a little bit of what I said. I don't know what you guys heard or what you didn't hear. But he makes this crazy sounding claim that there are entities who are being held and interbreeding with kidnapped people from war zones or from around the world. That's what we're being told. And that sounds nuts. On any typical day, you would hear something like that. But for those of us who have any knowledge when it comes down to the Bible, it doesn't sound that crazy. I'm gonna let this video finish, and I'll bring up one particular chapter, and let me know what you guys think about it.
Wow.
And for the record, I'm not suicidal, and I don't take risks. So.
I'm glad you said that. I'm speechless.
Why would he make those claims? I have huge respect for Tim Burchett. I really like him. He's one of my favorite congressmen. And because he doesn't typically like to blow smoke. He's one of those tell you like it is or tell it like it is type of politicians, as far as I've seen. But this is wild, y'all.
Yes, Congressman, we will have you back.
You should be. And I told the president, release it all. And the problem is the people that are around the president don't know and the president doesn't know the questions to ask. A few of us are going to have to get with the president and tell him what he needs to ask and where he needs to look. I mean, we're in meetings and they give addresses and tell locations of items, I'll just say. And the public has a right to know, dadgummit. It's your tax dollars.
Absolutely.
Let's get it out there.
You got my attention, Congressman.
They have locations, addresses of items, and he's just going to leave it at that. I'm telling you, I'm so fascinated with this topic because I think there's so much out there. There's more out there than meets the eye, clearly. But the fact that our government, the world, probably world governments know about this, and they're intentionally trying to keep us from knowing it. It just makes us even the more curious. And I really hope that the president, he actually puts it out there.
Appreciate you being as forthcoming as you have been tonight. And we look forward to having you back. Look, I know Donald Trump wants to disclose something. He hasn't done it yet, but I think he wants to be the president to do that. Tim Burchett, thank you.
He does.
Yeah.
He does. Thank you, brother.
Wild stuff, y'all. Now, let me get this down here and share with you what I was thinking. Again, I don't think it's shocking on one front, but then it really isn't. And of course, we're going to hopefully, let me know if y'all can see that. I have Genesis chapter 6 up. And some of y'all probably already knew where I was going. Let me make my head a little smaller so everyone can see this. Now it came to pass, Genesis chapter 6, verse 1. Now it came to pass when men began to multiply on the face of the earth and daughters were born to them, that the sons of God saw the daughters of men that they were beautiful, and they took wives for themselves, all of whom they chose. And the Lord said, my spirit shall not strive with man forever, for he is indeed flesh, yet his days shall be 120 years. There were giants on the earth in those days, and afterward, when the sons of God came into the daughters of men, and they bore children to them. Those were the mighty men who were of old, men of renown. Then the Lord saw that the wickedness of man was great in the earth, and that every intent of the thoughts of his heart were only evil continually. But here we see in verse 4 in particular, there were giants in those days. Or let's even go back further. Verse 1, now it came to pass when men began to multiply on the face of the earth and daughters were born to them, that the sons of God saw the daughters of men, that they were beautiful, and they took wives for themselves, all of whom they chose. Now there are a lot of people who believe that the sons of God were angels, angelic beings, who took for themselves wives or who intermingled sexually with human women. And they created these offspring who were as the verse says later on in verse 4, there were giants in those days, and also afterward, when the sons of God came into the daughters of men, they bore them children. They were the mighty men who were of old, men of renown. And there is a growing movement. I don't know if it's new per se, but there are a lot of people who are under the impression that these are the Nephilim, these incredibly powerful, very large beings that we see later on all throughout the Old Testament. As a matter of fact, you see them. David obviously was with Goliath and other places, and Joshua coming in contact with these people. The Nephilim, they're throughout the Bible, throughout. And there's something going on where we see this took place before the flood, but later on, even post-flood, we still see that these beings are still present. And that's where people think there might be some spiritual offspring or something of these. I've heard some pretty wild claims. And I say wild because I haven't studied them in deep detail. But there are a lot of people who believe that the flood killed a lot of these beings, these Nephilim, these giants, but their spirits continue to live on. Dr. Michael Heiser, he passed away a few years ago, but he really went into a lot of detail. Again, do yourself a favor. I'll put it in the chat for those of you who want to look further into this topic, I'll put my video conversation I had with Gary Bates of Creation Ministries International, where he and I discussed some of these issues. And it's really good. And hopefully I can pull this up here and not distract y'all from what we're currently talking about. But again, really crazy stuff. I'm not going to do it right now because I don't want to slow down the flow of what we're doing. But I really would love to know what y'all think. What do you think is going on? Do you think these are aliens, actual humanoid beings or creatures that live on other planets? Or do you think there's something far deeper and maybe even far more deceptive going on? Not simply on the part of our government, but I'm talking about from the spiritual plane. Let me know what your thoughts are. But in the meantime, we'll move on to the next topic. I want to share this crazy story out of Florida. Let me get rid of this here. Crazy story out of Florida. Well, let me do this first. Let me share with y'all. Hold on. I want to read a little bit to you first, because as it wouldn't be too shocking as unsurprisingly, I'll say, many mainstream media outlets don't give you the full details. I'm not saying everyone's intentionally trying to hide every story, but it makes you wonder. And if you were here for the intro, hopefully you heard the intro, because again, I was having a few technical difficulties. But this is not a laughing story. I don't mean to chuckle, but I was just chuckling over the technical problems I was having. But this is the story out of Florida. Thug accused of killing woman in Florida, hammer attack, y'all. And we're going to show you aspects of it. Obviously, we're not going to show you all the details. YouTube would never let that fly, for one. And it's pretty disturbing. But if you go on X, you can find a lot of it out there. And the audio alone is disturbing. And you're talking about a guy who had spent over 20 years in law enforcement. I've seen some pretty horrific things throughout the course of my life. Medic in the Army. And this was really, really sickening. So again, if you want to actually see more, you're not going to get the full footage. At least I didn't come across it. But we'll show details. We'll show you some of it. We'll talk about the details. And then I'll give you a few safety tips just from my perspective, and a few things that woman did that I think we can all learn from, to protect, where you can protect yourself, where you can protect your loved ones by giving them advice if they ever find themselves in a similar situation. Thug accused of killing woman in Florida hammer attack is Haitian illegal alien protected from deportation under Biden Department of Homeland Security. Again, another individual who loses their life or has their life totally turned upside down because of the former administration's idiotic immigration policies. And that's the only way to put it, y'all. Their policies, they intentionally opened up the border and allowed this kind of crap to happen. I'm not saying that they wanted to see people die, but they knew the risks. You can't tell me that they were unaware of the risks, and all for power. And the sad part about it, almost no one will ever see justice. Or I would dare say none of these main decision makers will ever see justice for the choices they made. The male accused of killing a woman in Florida in a Florida hammer attack last week is Haitian illegal alien who was protected from deportation under former President Joe Biden's administration, Department of Homeland Security said. As Blaze News previously reported, A 40-year-old male is accused of hitting a woman in the head with a hammer and killing her in a horrific attack, recorded on surveillance video outside a Fort Myers gas station convenience store. DHS said the suspect in the attack first entered the United States in August 2022, so he did enter under the Biden administration, and was released into the country under the Biden administration. A federal judge issued a final order of removal against him in 2022. But the Biden administration granted him temporary protected status, which expired in 2024. And with all of the pushback Trump has been trying to get people out of here, it wouldn't be any surprise that he slipped through the cracks, that he still managed to slip through the cracks. Quote, this illegal alien barbarically hit this woman in the head multiple times with a hammer. This heinous murderer was released into the country by the Biden administration. Not only did they release him into the country, but they gave him temporary protected status. And that's what Trump almost immediately revoked. And the crazy part about this, y'all, Trump has been made into the villain. ICE has been turned into the villain. Even though we have this happening all over the country, this story, for one, you already saw what dude looked like. Look at him. Now, you really think the mainstream media is going to put this story out there? Do you really think that? Of course they won't. This story will, unless there's more of a public outcry, this story will just disappear, like the Irina Zarutska story. There was such a massive public outcry that they were forced to deal with this, that the political left was forced to deal with this. Let's get back to where we were. All right. DHS said Immigration and Custom, or DHS said ICE lodged a detainer against the suspect and he will be deported regardless of the outcome of his case. Notably, both Fort Myers Police as well as Lee County Sheriff's Office spelled the suspect's name, Robert Joaquin, while the DHS originally spelled Robert Joachim. The reason for the spelling discrepancy is unclear. It's probably someone just took the guy's name and they wrote what they thought they knew. Happens all the time in law enforcement. But Fort Myers Police on Wednesday confirmed to Blaze News that the correct spelling is Joaquin. DHS on Wednesday later updated its website to the spelling of Joaquin. And I'm just guessing at the pronunciation. Joaquin on Wednesday remained behind bars at Lee County Jail on charges of homicide, murder, dangerous, depraved without premeditation, and criminal mischief. There was no bond listed for him in jail record. There shouldn't be. Gulf Coast News on Wednesday reported that Joaquin gave a detailed confession to detectives following his arrest and indicated that he went to the gas station last week specifically to kill the victim. The gas station clerk identified as Nilufa Eastman, also known as Yasmin. The outlet added a video report that Eastman was a mother of 2 daughters. Wow. And sadly, because of this previous administration, this family is their mom is gone. Her parents lost a daughter. If she had any siblings, they lost a sister. This is pathetic. And this is why I talk about these stories so much. Now let's go. I'll share with you the video. Again, it's an edited version, so you're not going to see exactly what went down. But I'll share with you the video, and hopefully we'll get a few more details.
11, the man accused of murdering a mother with a hammer outside a gas station in Fort Myers is now in jail. Investigators arrested Robert Joachim. Surveillance video captured the brutal attack. We want to warn you, what you're about to see may be disturbing. You can see the man in this video smashing this black SUV with a hammer. Then second later, the clerk comes out of the store and he attacks her.
Now, if you see some of the less edited videos, you'll see him hit her in the face, in the head. Well, you won't see her. You'll see him swinging, and clearly he hit her in the head. You'll see her fall down, and then he's standing over her, and it's blacked out. Her body is blacked out, but you see him swinging his hammer, and you can hear the cracks, the impact. Disturbing is an
It
understatement.
happened at the Chevron along MLK Boulevard near Highland Avenue. Gulf Coast News reporter Kyle Schmidt is live in Fort Myers, where police arrested her attacker.
I'm standing just off of Mango Street, the spot where Robert Joaquin was caught and arrested. I want to take you through the events that happened today. Earlier on, that started at the Chevron gas station just off of MLK Boulevard. I want to give you a warning. The video is disturbing to some viewers.
Take a look at this video. You can see a man breaking a car's windows in the parking lot of the Chevron gas station along MLK Jr. Boulevard. Shortly after, a woman goes up to confront him and he attacks her with a hammer. FMPD calling this a homicide, saying he killed the woman, a mom of 2 teenagers, who was working at this gas station. People shaken up from this news.
I've been here all my life, but I've never seen like actual violence.
The suspect, identified as Robert Joaquin, was seen by neighbors running down Mango Street. A few moments later, police cars flooded in both sides, trapping and arresting the man here.
Devastating. They're very devastating. Very sad.
Very gut-wrenching. Like you said, very sad. That's someone's mom, daughter, sister.
Gulf Coast News has been searching for Joaquin to learn more about the suspected killer and to see if there's any arrest reports or court records tied to his name.
How much anger you gotta have to hit someone with a hammer?
Life holds so much meaning, you know. So once another person take another life away, it's very deep, and you have to live with their trauma, and their family have to live with their trauma, and so forth and so on.
He stated that, how can you have so much anger? And according to the Blaze report, there was a claim he's alleged to have confessed to his wrongdoings, and he said that he came there with the intent to do it. Who knows if they had a history, or did he just have some mental health issues? And I'm not saying that as a way out, but having dealt with countless people who struggle with mental health issues, who knows what motivations this guy has. But hopefully as time goes on, we'll get more details.
Joaquin was listed as a transient Florida resident in the arrest report. He's being charged with homicide. Live in Fort Myers, Kyle Schmidt, Gulf Coast News.
You know, it's unfortunate that this news station did not even talk about his immigration status. Now, maybe they didn't know. I'm not trying to assume any type of evil intent, but they say that they were combing their research, their data, to see if they had anything. Maybe they were just looking for his criminal status, but I think a really good and a really fair and balanced news station would report that. Again, I'm not trying to impugn any guilt on their part. Who knows what their motivation was? But let me back up a little bit, y'all. I said I wanted to use this sad and tragic incident, make this into a lesson for all of us. Let's play a little bit of what's going on here. Now, he's smashing her window to her vehicle, or a vehicle. And she comes out, and if you see the video, like I mentioned on X, you'll hear her actually confront this guy, or she'll say something to him like, dude, like, what are you doing? What the hell are you doing? Something like that. Let's call it for what it is, y'all. Like, her walking out to confront him, a guy smashing a vehicle with a hammer, was a terrible, terrible idea. I'm not trying to place blame. All I'm doing, again, is just saying her decision to do that was a terrible decision. A guy has a weapon in his hand. And even if he didn't, let's just say he was breaking the rear view mirror or the antenna or the windshield wipers with his bare hands. Why would you physically come out to confront somebody like that? Your best bet would be to call the police and give a really good description. Or if you want to come out and try to deter the guy, at least come out with a gun accessible, or what some form of physical deterrent, preferably a firearm. And you are in Florida, and I think they're pretty liberal with their firearms. For your freedoms, your freedoms to bear arms. They're not progressive. When I say liberal, meaning like they're pretty free and open in a lot of cases. So if you ever find yourself in a situation like this, and I'll let the video move forward a bit, he's walking all up on her. I'm not sure if she saw him with a weapon or not, but she was able to see enough to where she came out. He's walking up on her aggressively. If you see the full or less edited version, you can clearly see that he's angry or irritated, excited, however you want to term it. This is just not good, y'all. I mean, it's crazy. Crazy. So I share this not to be ultra critical of her, but you got to be. If me having this conversation with y'all can keep one of y'all from putting yourself in a bad situation like this, then call it what it is. I'm being critical. She made a horrific tactical mistake when it comes to her own safety. And I don't want any of y'all to be out there and doing the same thing. If you're dealing with anybody like that who seems out of control, irate, angry, violent, confronting them unarmed, confronting them, period. Don't confront them at all. But if you are forced to confront them, do so with a weapon, preferably a firearm, something that you can fire from a safe distance. If you are in that situation, I'm not saying if the guy's 50 feet away and he's talking and then you shoot him, obviously within the realm of the laws, within the bounds of the laws in your city, state, county. But this is just bad all the way around. And it unfortunately cost this woman her life. So I say all that to say, be careful, y'all. Be careful what's going on. What's up, bro? People live in a state of denial. Sadly, it's true. I don't know if you made this comment regarding her. I don't know. She probably didn't think it would happen to her. A lot of people, and I have this conversation with my family all the time. One of my kids is like, sometimes I'm like, you got to start thinking about your safety so you don't end up being a victim. You can live in a world where you think everything happens to the other guy. It happens to other people. It's not going to happen to me until it happens to you. And then you can't go back and rewind the clock and take it back. And hopefully, if you're ever put in a situation like this, you live to talk about it and you don't end up losing your life or being maimed permanently. But even if, let's just say, she had survived this, she would still have to deal with the mental scar of the brutal attack. And then how does that impact your whole family? Be cognizant of your surroundings. Don't put yourself intentionally or even unintentionally, to the best of your ability, in a dangerous setting. Just don't do it. And she's on MLK Boulevard. I've never seen an MLK Boulevard. This incident took place on a Martin Luther King Boulevard. I've never seen an MLK Boulevard where violence wasn't going on. Chris Rock did a hilarious skit about it years ago on one of his comedy shows. But it's the truth. So she's probably used to just telling people, hey, get out of here. And most people would leave until she ran into this guy. Exactly. People who have rarely experienced violence personally put themselves in the worst positions. Amen, brother. Because they've never lived the consequences personally. And I even get chills just hearing them write that out because it's so true. So true. We can be, those of us, and I know Don, he's got law enforcement experience. Those of us that have seen it face to face and have dealt with the other side of it, we're the ones having to go do the welfare checks, or we're the ones having to respond to the situation after the violence took place, and we're consoling the family or taking a police report or taking someone into custody after it went down. We see it all the time. So we're probably a little more anal, not probably, definitely a little more anal about these situations. So we talk to our loved ones and we're like, hey, like when my daughter goes for a walk, I get on her all the time. Carry a stick with you, honey. Just something. We have coyotes in the neighborhood. Carry a stick with you. And she gets frustrated. Oh, I hate carrying that thing. I said, okay, you'll be, whoops, phone's ringing. It's on the ground. Yeah, so you'll wish you had it. You'll wish you were a little uncomfortable when you get a pack of coyotes nipping at your heels, at best, nipping at your heels. You'll wish you did have something. And we have conversations about her getting her weapon, her gun, getting her CCW and things like that. But having dealt with violence on a regular basis, more than half my life, I was in a career, not more than half, close to half of my life. I was in a career where I dealt with it in one way, shape, or form. Even when I was in the Army, when I worked as a medic, you see the other side of it. I worked in the orthopedic unit, violent, people getting attacked at times. You're dealing with broken bones, things like that. Or you just see bad crap. That's been most of my life. Whether it's the living in kind of the hood in South Carolina in high school, you saw stupidity, not nearly as bad as what the Sumter, South Carolina is where I was raised, or where I went to high school, I should say. I spent from 13 to 18. I spent some formative years there. And after I got out of the Army, started working corrections in the state prison in Indiana. Then I started doing security once we moved to Las Vegas. Worked in a few spots in some of the casinos. You see foolishness going on there. Did that for about a year and a half, almost 2 years. And then the rest was law enforcement. So yeah, I would say half of my life, more than, I've seen violence in one way, shape, or form. And you become, I wouldn't say, I don't know if I'd use numb as the best word for it, but you do become desensitized to it to a degree. But your radar, your antennas are constantly up and you're constantly looking to see what's going on around you. And you just see things, if you haven't totally lost your edge, that most people don't. So I say all that to say, y'all, just don't be foolish when you're out there. And if it means that people look at you a little weird because you're extra careful, I'll give you a for instance. Let's say you're at a 7-Eleven or a local gas station, corner store, and you pull in there and there's like a group of young thugs hanging out and you don't feel comfortable, don't stop. Back out and just keep on going, or just keep on going. Go to the next gas station. Little things like that, y'all. The public may, especially if it's somebody of a different ethnic groups, the public may say you're being racist or whatever. No, you're just being wise and smart, and you're not being a fool. Put yourself in a situation where you can thrive, where you can remain safe, and you get to go home. That's the bottom line, y'all. Forget what the public says. Make sure that you can make it home every day. Make sense? I hope so. Don says, and go clean up the mess. Yeah, unfortunately, that's what law enforcement has to do. We have to be the ones that, hey, I'm thankful for it. And I'm sure Don was too, to have the opportunity to do the job, man. It was a phenomenal experience. I loved my law enforcement career. Not every aspect, obviously, because parts of it are just irritating and menial and monotonous. But overall, I loved what I did. And I think most of us who worked in that field would agree. Or I would say a good portion, because some of us are just as cynical as can be. But I do get it. I definitely do understand. Now, I want to share one last story with y'all. And this is the latest update on the man who killed Irina Zarutska. That
competency evaluation says
the tragic incident that took place on that, I think it was a train station. I'm not sure if it was like train line, where the young girl was stabbed to death. We have an update on the accused, what's going on with him. So let's just jump right into this right here.
competency evaluation says the accused killer of Irina Zarutska is incapable to proceed in his murder case. Lawyers for DeCarlos Brown are asking a Mecklenburg County judge to put the state case on hold for 6 months. Thanks for joining us tonight at 10. I'm Brian Blakely. DeCarlos Brown is accused in Zarutska's deadly stabbing last August on a Blue Line train in South End. Brown's attorneys want a judge to delay the April 30th hearing because of that competency report. Queen City News reporter Shakira Speaks shares what a mental health expert is saying about that review.
A hearing for DeCarlos Brown and the decision on whether he could face the death penalty may not be held at the end of April. Brown underwent a mental evaluation in December. The evaluation found he was, quote, incapable to proceed.
When someone is deemed incompetent, it doesn't mean that they're not responsible forever. I think that's important to note. It means that right now they don't have the mental capacity to understand the charges and to participate in their own defense.
Now, that's a good distinction to point out, because I can recall there were a few times where I worked the case as in when I was a transport officer back in my correction days, where I would sit in on a trial or a preliminary hearing, and they would have somebody with a long history of mental health issues, and they would find them, or even the guys that would be on the psych unit, they would find that they were deemed physically incapable of participating in their own trial, in their own defense. So they would send them off to a mental health facility, Lakes Crossing here in Nevada. And a lot of times they would be there for a few months, and then they would come back and they would be medicated, and then they would be deemed competent to proceed with the trial. So this isn't necessarily the worst thing that could happen. This could actually work out better for them. And it's allowing the criminal justice system to work out. And I was being kind of negative at the outset when the video first started, or when the show first started. But now that I'm thinking things through and just kind of reminiscing on how things went in my previous experience, the jobs I've done, hopefully things will work the same way in North Carolina, but only time will tell.
Brown's attorney says his client is also facing federal charges for Irina Zarutska's killing last August. The lawyer argues moving forward with the state would create a, quote, logistical barrier because Brown is still in federal custody.
The judge has to make that determination, and you're not going to get a competency hearing until you get a Rule 24 hearing. So they'll have the Rule 24 hearing. It's not even scheduled yet to have a competency hearing. So you'll have to have a number of things take place before we can even get to either him be deemed competent to go forward or not.
Mental health expert Dr. Sharice Johnson says the process to declare a patient incapable or incompetent to stand trial is extensive.
It's not a matter of something very subjective. They look at a lot of pieces of information and take someone through a battery of different psychological tests so that they're also able to see that it's a window of time where they have been in a certain mental state, not just in the moment. So you cannot fake incompetency.
Johnson says loved ones and supporters can feel like a suspect is getting away with a crime, but the main goal of incompetency is a pause.
And it is very possible that through treatment, which will be part of the next steps, that they can get to a place of competency, and then they would continue to go through trial.
In Charlotte, Shakir Speaks, Queen City News.
Carlos Brown is facing a federal charge of committing an act causing death on a mass transportation system. If convicted, he could face the death penalty, and that charge alone. Records show Brown is being held in a federal correctional facility in Chicago.
Queen City. Yeah, it's just pretty tragic all the way around. What you got here, Paul? Competency in the courts is a joke. He chose her due to her color. And he is heard saying just that. I got that white girl. That shows he knew what he was doing. And I do agree with that, but I also think mental health is just such a, there's so many levels to people having mental illness that, and he could be diagnosed with whatever, schizophrenic, bipolar, who knows. But he could be mentally ill, but at the same time, he could have been fully aware of what he's doing, if that makes sense. But man, this, I'm telling you, y'all, this whole situation, everything that our criminal justice system is flawed. It ain't perfect. There's no such thing as a perfect criminal justice system. But I'll take that. I'll take what we have over any other country, because you actually get to be tried by a jury of your peers, and it's based in multiple standards. Like there's like a Roman principles, but also there's like biblical principles when it talks about that amount of 2 or 3 witnesses, let every truth be established, not just looking at one person making a claim to the best of their ability. Again, flawed, it's imperfect, it's not without potential problems, but I don't know about y'all, but I'd rather be tried here in the U.S. than anywhere else. Pretty wild. I haven't heard enough evidence to decide whether or not it was racially motivated. He may very well have used white girl simply as a term of reference. That's very true. Very true. Yeah, there's a lot of detail, just a lot of nuance going on. Because again, not making any excuses for the guy, but in the Black community, the white girl, white dude, this white dude, it's a term that's often used. So was that his primary motivation? We don't know. And we may never know, honestly. But at the same time, if you flip the script a little bit, let's just say this was the other way around and you had a white guy who stabbed a Black woman, the narrative that this was racially motivated would be overwhelming. That would be the main talking point that we would hear, whether true or not. But at the same time, there's that system that we have. They have to be evaluated on their mental capacity and their ability to stand trial or not. Don said maybe he's just an evil person. Very possible. Very, very possible. But anyway, man, I appreciate y'all so much for joining me today. Pretty wild episode. A lot of topics we talked about. I really love topics like this, where we get to address things that, like the alien phenomenon. I mean, I'm just so fascinated by that topic. Not too much, not to the point to where I'm like obsessive about it, but when we start delving into things beyond regular time and space, if that's what we're dealing with or not, when we start dealing with things that point to the biblical truths, I could talk about that all day. And then when we start talking about criminal justice related things, they can be pretty sad and pretty depressing. But I also think that we can use these tragedies to protect ourselves and protect those we love. But as always, I appreciate y'all for joining me. And if you can do me a favor, stick around for next week, as Lord willing, Tuesday, we'll be at it again. And as always, stay safe, God bless, and make sure you join the conversation. Take care.